time to take a look at what's grabbing headlines around the world. Let's start in the Philippines. Yesterday, the self-declared hitman testified in the Senate, saying some pretty shocking things about the president.
That's right. This is an incredible story coming out of the Philippines. Let's take a look, first of all, at the Philippine Daily Inquirer. You can see the photo of that self-declared hitman there, Edgar Matobato. So that was a televised Senate hearing. And you can see that bombshell quote, too. Duterte ordered us to kill. So he is, of course, talking about the president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte. Now, Matobato says that Duterte ordered him and other members of a so-called Davao Death Squad to kill hundreds of criminals, drug users, and political opponents. And this is when Duterte was, allegedly, this is when Duterte was mayor of Davao City. Now, you can see here, this article highlights some of the things he said during that testimony yesterday. There's some pretty gruesome details, it must be said. For instance, there's one incident where a victim was allegedly fed to crocodiles. Now, as you can imagine, this is a huge story in the Philippines. It's not only getting coverage in the Philippine Daily Inquirer. Here is another article in the Philippine Star, which says that Matobato says that actually over 1,000 people were killed between the years 1998 and 2014. You might be wondering why he's holding up this roll of tape here. This is an incident that happened yesterday that's getting a lot of attention. Essentially, he said that tape was actually packaging tape used to kill people.
Oh, how pleasant. Well, Duterte hasn't commented on the testimony, but earlier this week he accused the opposition of plotting to impeach him.
That's right. And the president is drawing a lot of criticism in the press, it must be said. If we go back to the Philippine Star, there's this opinion piece by Anne-Marie Pamintua Tan, and she talks about the executioner. She says that Duterte is the only person to win the presidency on a platform of killing threats to society. Now, people thought this was just a way of speaking, but actually he meant it quite literally. Now, she says there's no indication that this very controversial testimony is actually going to slow down the president's very controversial drug war. What will be interesting to see is whether it will erode his enormous popularity and whether the public will continue to support this vicious war. In her words.
And staying in Asia, Japan's main opposition Democratic Party has elected a new leader.
That's right. You can read about her in the Japan Times. This is Reno Murata. She actually likes to go by the name Reno. Good portrait of the 48-year-old here, if you want to know more about her background and policies. Now, in another article, the Japan Times takes a look at the challenges that the Democratic Party is facing with this new leader. Now, though her election claim came as no surprise, the question is whether the largest opposition force is actually ready to rally behind a new leader and whether she can actually unite the party, which is currently marred in factional and policy divisions, essentially. Now, the Japan Times in this editorial says it's really important for the party to come together if it wants to be a real challenge to Shinzo Abe's ruling Liberal Democratic Party.
But Reno's campaign to be party leader was somewhat overshadowed by controversy over her dual citizenship?
That's right. Now, her father is Taiwanese. And actually, there's an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal that points out that this makes her the first person with mixed ethnic heritage to head a major political party in Japan. But the problem is, just 2 days before this party Congress vote happened, she announced that she had not renounced her Taiwanese citizenship, despite earlier saying that she had when she became fully Japanese at the age of 17. Now, despite this flip-flop, her rise in Japanese politics it's quite indicative of a change in Japanese society as well. There are more and more people in Japan that have a foreign parent. And this is a real big change for Japan. For hundreds of years, Japan has been quite isolated. And most people think that it's, they're homogeneous, essentially. But mixed marriages are increasing. They're currently at about 3.3%, whereas when she was born, they were at 0.5%. So quite a big change there in society.
Well, from Japanese politics to U.S. politics, Democratic presidential hopeful Hillary Clinton is back on the campaign trail after wrestling with pneumonia.
That's right. This is, of course, the big story in the U.S. media right now. I just pulled out a cartoon from the New York Times by Chapat. You can see Hillary Clinton here at the doctor's office with a thermometer in her mouth while the doctor looks at her health records, but you can see they're not health records, they're polls. And you can see the blue poll there that looks like it's her poll is going down, whereas the red poll, traditionally the Republican color, is going up. And indeed, if you look at the New York Times latest poll that came out this week, Clinton, her lead has seriously shrunk, and she's currently neck and neck with Donald Trump.
Staying with the New York Times, they have an interesting profile of a new museum that's set to open in the States.
That's right, in September. And on September 24th, you can see this article here, I Too Sing America. Now, that's a quote from a Langston Hughes poem. This is the National Museum of African American History and Culture. It's not just a museum for African Americans, but for all Americans. And this is a really interesting profile of the museum. It looks like it's going to be a great museum, and it's quite a unique museum because originally it didn't have a collection. And so it had to go on kind of an antiques roadshow style conquest to get people to actually donate objects. They have 40,000 objects in this museum. Now, it really covers all of African American history, from the more painful, dark chapters of U.S. history to more light topics as well. The New York Times says that the new museum was really confronted with this task of capturing both the pain and the pride of America's past. And understanding Black history and culture is essential to understanding American history in general. So it definitely looks like an interesting museum that's set to open. So on September 24th in Washington.
Great. I'll make sure and visit. Thank you very much, Florence Villamino with Press. So stay tuned.